Howdy, guys. Mike here with Fastlane Fitness. We've got our special guest, emphasis on the special, Jason Helms from Anyman Fitness. And we're going to be doing our third episode of the Bourbon and Barbells podcast, also known as the only fitness happy hour on the interwebs. Jason, what are you drinking today, man?
Well, I was drinking Gentleman Jack Daniels. I'm about 3 drinks in, so if I start to slur my words, please don't hold it against me. It's a Friday night. My wife is in Las Vegas at a bachelorette party. She was at a Chippendales show last night getting tallywhackers in her face. And so I have to drink my sorrows away here. But that's almost gone. It was about, maybe a third full. But when that's done, I got some of Kentucky's finest straight bourbon. I got myself some Maker's Mark, and we have the little University of Michigan wax up here because
Nice.
I'm right outside Detroit. So, Mike, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and hopefully I look good enough for our happy hour.
Yeah, dude, I'm glad that you dressed up. And as Jason was telling me before we get on here.
Hold on. Who dressed up? Who dressed up?
Fair enough. Well, it might be dressed down.
Okay, all right.
What did you say? The party. Well, he's got his Superman party beads.
Yes.
Which would you say?
When I'm wearing these Superman beads, and there's a story behind these beads. I got these beads in 2002. I had just started dating my now wife, and a buddy of mine. The two of us had planned a trip, and we drove from Ann Arbor, Michigan, all the way down to New Orleans. That's like a 20-hour drive, and we had 5 guys in a Jeep Cherokee making that 20-hour drive all the way down there. I actually drove in the trunk, and I got all the way down there, and I bought these beads down in 2002, so they're 14-year-old, and ever since I got them, these are my I'm about to get drunk beads. So nice. I put them on when it's time to party, and it's time to party.
Or as you told me before we got on here live, that you're about to get, what was it, white girl trashed?
White girl wasted, yes.
White girl wasted when you get the beads
my
on.
wife gone and my kids are over at grandma and grandpa's. I'm gonna get white girl wasted.
Perfect. Well, I want to get something out really quick before we start. First, I'm drinking Garrison Brothers bourbon, the first legal bourbon in Texas, and I want to point that out because I need to talk to Dan and I want to get him to sponsor Bourbon and Barbells, the podcast, one day. So I wanted to give him a shout out. But also, guys, on my YouTube channel, the Fastlane Fitness YouTube channel, you can subscribe. You can get my daily vlogs, and you can get all these episodes of the Bourbon and Barbells podcast. We're going to have lots of fun guests, and it's a happy hour. As you can see, we're having fun already. So let's dive into it. Jason, I can introduce you. I've known you for a long time now, and one of the first guys I met here in the fitness world back. I think I discovered your website like when you wrote your first blog post, actually maybe your second blog post, that lesson 1 about macronutrients, which I still think is a fantastic post. Not your best writing, but great information. And I've coached with Jason. I've hired him as a coach to help me get lean back in the day. So we've been hanging for a long time now. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your business, because you can do it better justice than I can.
Sure, absolutely, and I can't, it is kind of weird that there's like this small little contingent of people, and you were certainly one of them. Gosh, I think you were literally one of my first 5 clients that I ever had.
Oh, wow.
Really, real early in the game, very wet behind the ears, and I'm sure if you still had the PDFs saved. And
I do. I saw them on my computer the other day, actually.
The emails that came from my Yahoo email address, and I just looked back and go, oh man, started from the bottom, now we're here. So I appreciate the support, and it's been awesome to watch you grow as well. You very shortly after the two of us teamed up and I coached you, you started with your own coaching business, and you've been very successful as well. But my business, it's weird. It was kind of a labor of love, and there's like that cliche that what you want to do is you want to take something that's a hobby and take something that you find fun, and you just want to roll with it and just see what happens and see if you're good at it and just let it grow from there. And that is really what happened. Like, that cliche happened, and it's so odd. Like, I have to pinch myself. Like, I'm on the phone doing conference calls with this coach and that advisor, and upgrading servers and writing HTML code and sending out. I think I had a big number of clients this week and pretty much every week, and these emails just start flowing in, and it's really just kind of crazy. I almost have to pinch myself that this is going on. I'm so grateful to be a guy that just wanted to help people. I was a guy who, and you see me now dressing like an idiot and looking like a moron. But for a long time, I was really insecure, and I weighed a lot, about 80 more pounds than I currently weigh. And I didn't have much confidence, and I just kind of, did my thing, and I just thought this was life. And I don't know what the heck got inside of me. I think I had kids, and that was the big thing that kind of gave me the push to get into fitness. And everything just snowballed. I wanted to get lean, so I got lean. I wanted to learn about evidence-based fitness because I was tired of all the bullshit. I was tired of clicking on, you know what I used to do? I used to go on to yahoo.com and msn.com and go to like the health sections of Yahoo and MSN. And I'd be like, well, I'm trying to get healthy right now. And I would click on these articles, and it would be like, the top 5 foods to like shed belly fat. And I would go out to the store and I'd buy all of these foods, and then I would eat them, and like jack shit would happen. And I'd be like, what the hell is going on? And they would have, the top 10 workouts to get a 6-pack. And I would do these goddamn workouts. Oh, I'm sorry. Like I said, three drinks in. I'd do all these damn workouts, and all of a sudden, like nothing would happen. And oh man, it used to piss me off. So I literally would start paying really close attention to who wrote the email, who wrote the article, the credentials of the person that wrote the article. And I started looking into, instead of like, this is healthy and that is unhealthy, I started looking at systems. I started looking at methods as opposed to this is healthy and that is unhealthy.
Right.
And I think that's incredibly important when you see everything as binary. You see it's either healthy or it's not healthy. If it's healthy, do it. If it's not healthy, don't do it. It's either a 1 or a 0. That's all it is. It's just this big binary relationship that every single item in your life has. And like, if you flip enough of the healthy things up and you flip enough of the unhealthy things down, all of a sudden you'll be lean and jacked. And it doesn't work like that, at all. But so many people try to do that, and it took me a long time to realize that that's not how this thing works. You need to think in terms of a big picture. You need to think in terms of a system. Like, what system do you have in place for your life in order to improve things? And the first system that I employed was almost like a ketogenic Atkins style of a very low carb, like avoid all carbs. I totally fell into like the Gary Taubes, like good calories, bad calories, why do we get fat type stuff.
Right.
Wheat belly with William Davies.
Yeah.
And that slowly evolved. I got more into like Martin Birkin and Andy Morgan and the intermittent fasting and going that route. And then I even have recently gotten away from that. But you got deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And as I got deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, I was just trying stuff out on myself. That's all I was doing. I was just a guy that was having fun. I was just really happy that eventually, when I started trying all these things and learned about consistency and keeping a good system and making sure that it works for you and integrating it into your lifestyle, the pounds just started melting off, and like the weight started going up in the bar. I started getting stronger and stronger, and it was more just a byproduct of the system than anything else. Like, it wasn't like I was doing some magical rep number. I thought maybe it was at the time, but looking back at it, it was just because I finally had a system that I could integrate relatively seamlessly into the things that I did. Because I'm a teacher, I have young kids, and I was up real early. I would go to bed relatively early. I had to pack my lunch because I was a teacher. So I just realized, well, if I pack this kind of a lunch, then I'll probably lose weight. If I pack that kind of a lunch, I'll probably gain weight. If I eat that, so you learn how to mold the fitness to your lifestyle instead of molding your lifestyle to the fitness, which that's a mistake that a lot of people make.
Right.
So anyways, over time, I honed and honed and honed, and then really, actually, this entire business kind of started. A softball buddy of mine, Jack Dempsey. I wonder if he's watching right now. Jack, if you're watching over there in Connecticut, he works for ESPN now, which is fucking awesome. I love you, Jack. We were sitting down after a softball game, and I had helped him count macros and learn how to lift properly, and just kind of trained him just for fun because he's my buddy, and I wanted to help him out. And he had lost a bunch of weight, and he would always pepper me with questions. What do I do with this? What do I do with that? When should I eat this meal? When should I eat that meal? What should my macro breakdown be for this? What should I, and eventually, like, we were sitting down having those beers, and he said, dude, like, every time I ask you a question, for the most part, you know the answer. And he's like, and if you don't know the answer, you'll say, well, it could be this, it could be that, but this really doesn't matter. It's a small detail. He's like, you know what to tell me every time. Like, I'm basically getting free coaching and consultation services from you. And he's like, you can help people get fit. People will pay you money for that service. And like, that just got me thinking, like, dang, you're probably right. And so I was just like, you know what? I'll start a blog and I'll start writing. I always liked writing. I enjoyed writing. I hate grammar. I was not a big fan. I like reading, but not like reading in your high school English class, because then you have to like read For Whom the Bell Tolls and like Tale of Two Cities and other god awful books. I'm sorry if anybody's like an English literature major, but I hated forced reading in an educational environment. I love reading like for fun, for pleasure, for things that you're interested in. But I didn't like reading or grammar, but I loved writing. I even took like creative writing courses, persuasive writing courses in college. So it just fit. Like, I sat down and the article that you referenced there was god awful, but I love the fact that like it resonated with you. I say it's god awful now because looking back at it 3 years ago, I'm like, Jesus, what the hell was I even writing?
But it wasn't like your best writing, but if you're just trying to like learn, and you've got some serious feedback there. I don't know if you've got little headphones near you or not, but if you're just trying to learn like what are macronutrients, like here's what the macronutrients are, here's the advantage of this one, the disadvantage of this one, or I don't remember if it was advantages, disadvantages, but there was something like the positives, negatives, whatever it is, and then here's some examples. And it was just a good place to start. And I don't even know how I found your article, dude, but I mean, that was how we started talking. But
yeah,
I love.
So I actually can probably locate headphones in 15 seconds. There's going to be a pause in your podcast, though. Is it that annoying?
No, go ahead and do that, and then I'll just talk real quick. So no, it's just because it was echoing. But guys, I mean, Jason's site. I mean, what's really great about it? He's a school teacher. He started helping school teachers. You know, I mean, that was how I got started, was helping law students and attorneys and business professionals and that kind of thing. But what I really like about, and he mentioned it like a dozen times, was systems. Like, I feel like Jason is kind of the master of systems, and we're really going to dive into that here in a little bit, because when it comes to tricks or simplifications for your fat loss, he's got a dozen of them. When it comes to like when you're talking about building systems for consistency, like he's got such a good handle on that. And one of the things that you said, Jason, was, you know, about how it's not about making fitness your whole life about fitness. Like, that's kind of happened for both of us, where we've gotten really into fitness. But for most people, you don't have to make your life about fitness. You just need to fit fitness into your lifestyle. And a big part of that is following a plan that fits your preferences, that fits your, you know, your what your likes, your dislikes, you know, something that you'll enjoy, that you can stick with. Because as we know, like the key to results is not the perfect program. It's being consistent for a long enough period of time for your body to do its magic. So, you know, that was one of the things I really want to talk with you about today, was systems, because I feel like you handle those really well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about just kind of like how people can kind of create a system or a method. You know, you mentioned your lunches, right? Like how you can use habits or systems to kind of put your fitness on autopilot. That way it's not hard to stick to. Because I think that's one of the things you really excel at.
Sure. And thank you for the kind words. How is this? Is this better on the feedback?
Oh, it's way better. You actually sound a lot clearer too. This is actually
awesome.
Quality just got way improved. So
and I look even cooler with one extra accessory as well.
Dude, I think you should like get a suit jacket or something to go with it. Like, let's see how much stuff we can put on there.
Yeah, seriously. Actually, I like the way that you said it's not necessarily the details. It's not necessarily the minutia that's going to get you where you want to go. Those things can optimize the rate at which you get there, but it's not going to optimize if you get there. So you always need to make sure that you keep that in mind, that when you start talking about the minutia, and what I mean when I'm saying the minutia is I'm talking how many sets you do, as long as it's not taken to extremes, right? I mean, if you do 4 sets of workout, like that's really obviously not going to be as good as if you do like 10 to 15 sets per workout. But as long as you're not going to extremes, like things like set numbers, things for the most part like rep numbers when you're actually training, things like.
Well, I think like a better example is whether you're doing more sets at a lower rep range, or you're doing less sets at a higher rep range, right?
True.
Or
Okay. Yeah. As long as volume is kept relatively consistent.
right. Should I do
And
5 to 8 sets or 5 to 8 reps, or should I do 12 to 15 reps? Like that. I think
right. Absolutely. And I'm a huge fan of Eric Helms and Eric Helms' work. And I purchased his ebook that he just did recently with a few other guys. I know Andy Morgan wrote the nutritional component to the ebook, and it's an excellent ebook. And he talks about his pyramids of nutrition, and he talks about his pyramids of training. And the pyramid concept is at the base of the pyramid is what's incredibly important, and then it becomes a little less important and less important, less important. And both of them have 5 different components to them. And I like to tell people you want to focus almost all of your energy on the first 2 rungs of the ladder. And if you can't get to rung 2, then focus all of your energy on the first rung. And as far as diet goes, rung number 1 is calories. Rung number 2 is macros.
right.
So most importantly, you want to hit your calories. You want to make sure that you're either under your calories or over calories. So you have to start asking yourself like really serious questions as far as what is going to make you eat the proper number of calories. Like, and one of the biggest complaints that I get, and I'm sure you get too, Mike, from people that end up asking you about consultations is, I don't get it. I'm eating healthy, I'm eating clean, and I'm not losing weight. I don't understand what's happening. And I'm like, well, okay, well, let's discuss this. And how many calories are you eating? And they really don't know. They just say, well, I mean, I'm eating clean. Like if I want a snack, I'm eating an avocado, and I'm doing, or almonds, or and that's another thing, is that because carbs are now vilified and everyone thinks carbs make you fat, people are way overeating fat, dietary fat, and namely saturated fat.
It's good, healthy fat.
Right. I mean, people say, oh, it's healthy, so then I'll go eat a shit ton of it and it'll be okay. And it doesn't exactly work like that. So with your diet, your number 1 is calories, and number 2 is macros. And as far as macros are concerned, easily the most important thing is make sure you hit your protein. And the carbs and the fat, really, they kind of can go by the wayside. Some people do great on a ketogenic diet. I personally don't take on clients that do ketogenic diets just because I don't have much experience with them. And I have found that the lower in carb people go, actually it kind of prohibits fat loss at a certain point. And so the fat and carbs are
now real quick, let me stop you real quick there. You said it kind of prohibits fat loss. So like, I don't want somebody to listen to this and go, oh my gosh, I don't understand, like maybe I need to eat all carbs now. So is it prohibiting it because they're not getting the carbs and that's slowing down their rate of fat loss? Or are you talking about because they go insane because they're craving carbs and they fall off track and therefore it ruins their consistency, or both?
Well, I have seen a number of situations, and all I'm a practice and application guy. So when I'm working with a client, we will set them up on some sort of a moderate situation. It's generally around 35% protein, 20-ish% carbs. So it's a little lower on that end, and 45% fat, something along those lines. And that's usually what we start with at first. But just over time, I've realized that actually keeping the fat a little bit lower usually gives you a better volume of food, especially if they're eating whole food carb sources. Rice, potatoes, pasta, fruit, those things have, like, they fill you up like decently well. Yeah, I mean, if you're getting your carb sources from Skittles and Doritos, well, yeah, okay, you're going to have problems there. But as long as you're eating whole food carb sources, it shouldn't really be an issue. But I've had a number of situations where a client's been really frustrated and they've been nailing the calories, just nailing them day in and day out. And this isn't working like we thought it was. There's barely any movement on a tape measure. And I've said, and usually what this ends up being is petite females.
Right.
So sometimes if it was like a guy, like a big dude who had a 2,800 maintenance, I might just do a calorie reduction because they have enough calories to reduce. But since you're talking about a small petite female, I have an issue when I've already set calories pretty low. I mean, if you have a maintenance of 1,600 or 1,700 and you're trying to lose fat, you might be eating 1,100 calories a day. And I kind of have ethical and moral issue with saying, oh, you're eating 1,100 calories a day. Okay, well, guess what? You're going to eat 900. Like, I can't do that. Like, I wouldn't sleep well at night. So in those situations, what I like to do is just tinker with the macros. And I'll say, okay, let's take that protein that's at 100 grams. Let's drop it down to 75. You will probably be just fine on 75. We'll check really closely on the training logs and make sure that you're still gaining strength and still making progress as far as your training sessions are concerned. And so we'll drop the protein down, and we might drop the fat down as well, and just max out carbs as high as it can go. And these people might be eating 150 to 200 grams of carbs, which for a female with that low of a maintenance is like, oh my God, I'm stuffing myself with carbs. And I'm like, yes, sounds great. And in those situations, and I can't claim to be a doctor. I can't, like, I actually have to, as far as fitness coaches go, we have to be really careful on that. I don't have those sorts of credentials or anything, but it seems to kickstart things. And this is especially true with females. One of the biggest mistakes that I think females make is low carb dieting is all the rage right now. And a lot of females like to go to extremes. Like I think males do it too. So I don't want to be stereotypical or anything, but I think females see, oh, I'm not supposed to eat carbs. Okay, I will not eat another carb again until 2018. Like, that's just like kind of like their mindset. It like gets them in trouble. And I do think that can cause some metabolic issues, and it can cause some slowdown and some problems. So,
well, and there's so much about this that just has to do with like how your body handles hormones. And as much as, I mean, you and I have talked about this before, like nobody is a special snowflake. Like if you get your calorie balance right, your weight's going to go down. But at the same time, we're all different. And somebody might respond better to a certain balance of macronutrients and some to another. And so, like you said, like I know, like you like to have your carbs, and I know, myself, I like fatty foods, so I mean, if I could eat steak and eggs and that kind of thing, I don't crave the carbs as much. And so another element of this is what can you sustain and what works well for you. And I think too, when you mentioned the carbs, like so many people, I ran into this with my dad. He had this idea that like carbs were horrible, right? And he would go, and I know you've talked about your dad and trying to get him, help him out so many times before. I've done the same with my dad, and he would, completely cut out carbs. Like you can't have them at all. They're evil. And he would lose weight for 2-3 weeks, and then he would totally stall out. Because it was like his body, just the way it messed with his hormones, his body was just like, yeah, sorry, dude, we're not going to cooperate with you anymore. And then recently, I finally got him. I was like, look, here's the deal. Here are your calories. Here's your protein. Eat whatever the hell you want, carbs and fat wise after that. And let's see what happens. And it's like 2 months going on now where he's just got weight going down, down, down. And we've converted him, but it took years, and awesome. I think that's something that people run into is you need to know what your preferences are. That way you can do something you can sustain. And then you need to realize like, there's not a bad thing. There's no good and bad foods. There's not like, things aren't evil. Like one's not, the healthy foods you mentioned, oh, I'm snacking on avocado. Man, if you give me like, I can take, I've got an 11-month-old, I can take his baby food bowl dish and fill it with nothing but nuts and fruit and probably blow half my calories for the day. And that would be a healthy snack for somebody, Right. And so it's real important to get, although I have moved further from this, if it fits your macros thing where we eat Pop-Tarts for our carbs and all this kind of stuff, I've moved more toward the healthy eating, just because like you said, the denseness and how filling it is. But at the end of the day, like you need to keep those calories in check. And that's a big thing. So you talked about this. So we're trying to develop this system. Like you talked about the macronutrients a lot. Like what are some recommendations you have for people for like setting it up so it's easier for them, setting up, habits or something like, one I've heard that you talk about all the time is you eat the same lunch. It's like, in winter, this is your winter lunch, this is your summer lunch, this is your spring lunch, and you pack the same lunch every single day to eliminate just one more decision and make it easier on yourself to hit your numbers. Like, what are some things that you recommend for people to kind of make life easier and make it fit with their lifestyle and take away some of that willpower motivation issue that we run into all the time?
Right. I cannot pretend that my job is not a help for me in that situation. And the fact that I'm an actual teacher means a few things. First off, it means that I can't go out to eat. I have 40 minutes for lunch. That's it. I can't take long, leisurely business lunches. It just doesn't work because at the 40-minute mark, and really after you take into consideration 4 hours for bells, like you're talking 32 minutes or 4 hours, 4 minutes on either side of the 40
Right.
for the bells and the passing time in the hallways. You're talking like 32 minutes. That's all I got. So I cannot get in my car, drive somewhere, go out to eat a nice leisurely lunch, pound back a couple of beers. It's usually frowned upon in the educational environment to go get drunk at lunchtime. So I can't.
You
I
saved
can't
that
really,
for Friday podcasts.
that is correct, Mike. And I'm on spring break right now too. I'm on vacation. But so that helps. And early in my teaching career, this is my 12th year of teaching. Early in my teaching career, I would always pack my lunch because you have no choice as a teacher. You have to pack your lunch. There are some people that play the call up the pizza joint and tell them you need to deliver a pizza exactly at this time. But I didn't want to spend the money on it. That's probably me being cheap more than anything else. So I've just always brought my lunch. And early on in my career, what I would end up doing is I would bring my lunch and we'd go either to the break room or whatever, and like there might be leftover cafeteria food, or one of the moms of a student would bring in cupcakes and cookies, or there would be someone would have ordered a pizza and there's 4 pieces left and they go, anybody can eat it. So I would always be that scavenger. I'd be the big guy. And I've always kind of been a garbage disposal, like, and people saw that, and like you laugh, and I understand that, I do. And maybe other bigger guys know what this is like, but it's like this weird, adverse, backhanded peer pressure for me to always eat.
Dude,
Like it's
I'm a little dude, and I'm the same way. Like I was always the short, tiny guy that could eat absolutely anything. And then when I got out of college, it was like all of a sudden like, oh, by the way, all that stuff where your body would just burn it off. Now it's all gonna be right at your belly button. We're gonna affectionately call it, or as my family used to call it, my bagel.
I did not switch my eating habits at all from 13 until about 24. And the difference was at 13, I weighed 190 pounds. And at like 24, I weighed like 300. So like I didn't change my eating habits. My metabolism changed somewhere
Right,
along the line,
right.
or my testosterone production or something. But so that's kind of like what I did. So a big change when I started dieting was the idea of I am going to make a meal and that is all I am going to eat at lunch. That's
Right.
it. Like I'm not going to eat anything else. I don't give a F if it's Bagel Friday. I don't care if someone brings in Starbucks. I don't care if a room mom makes cookies the day before Christmas. I don't care if it's actually Halloween and someone brings in a bag of Snickers. I don't care. And it even has gotten to the point where every once in a while we'll get like a catered luncheon, like a really nice meal at like from like Carrabba's or a
Mm.
local Italian eatery, and I'll just be no, I got my turkey sandwich and my carrots. Leave me alone. And it's weird the social stigma that comes with not eating food that everybody else eats. It's a very strange happening, and it's only a happening that someone who's gotten really serious with their fitness and has finally just said, I don't care what anybody else says. I'm doing me, and I'm losing weight, and I'm getting healthy. And if that means I'm not eating your muffin, then I don't give a shit. Like you can go screw yourself. Like kind of like a mindset, like I'm not
Yeah.
giving you any of my F's, kind of a mindset. But you really do. Like, hey, Jason, you want to go out to eat lunch? No. Hey, Jason, you want to go out to happy hour? No. Hey, Jason, and after a while, like you really do stop getting asked. You
Right.
do,
Right.
which is kind of like a bummer in its own thing. But you have to just not care about that. You do if your fitness is totally important to you. Now, obviously, there are ways around it, and you can fit anything in there. And obviously, this is my happy hour, fitness
Right.
happy hour. Cheers with some Jack Daniels. But I mean, I don't do this on like 3 times a week or anything.
Right. Right.
So I know I'm getting long-winded, and that's probably the Jack talking more than anything else. But the thing that you have to remember is your life will not change. Like your job is unlikely to change. I mean, maybe you'll switch jobs, but that's not going to change. You're going to have a job. If you have kids, barring a catastrophe, you're always going to have kids for the next 18 years until they move out of your house and they go to college. Like your components of your life, when you wake up, for the most part, where you live, the things that you do, those aren't changing. So what you need to do is come up with a way to make your fitness fit your lifestyle. You can't fit your lifestyle to your fitness. You can't. Like, I don't think it's possible to decide, well, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. Let me give you a little bit of an example. I was able to do this for a year. For 1 year, I would meal prep and make big batches of food right over there on my stove on a Sunday. And I'd make either chilies or I'd like season chicken, and I would do this and that. And it did take like 3 or 4 hours to do. And it worked for a little bit. And I got to a point about a year ago where I was like, oh my God, I can't take another year of this meal prepping. Like, it's driving me crazy. Every Sunday I'm spending 3 hours to do it. And I'm a firm believer that if it's not easy and a low barrier to entry, you're not going to do it.
That's something that needs to be reiterated is if it's not easy, you're not going to do it. And it's funny because, I read an article today. It was also about like, if it's too easy, you might not do it. Like if you're not motivated to do it, but if it needs to be something that fits seamlessly into what you do. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, the whole idea of like, I'm trying to think of, for example, you talked about meal prep. I don't do the big batch meal prep, but what I do is that every time I cook extra. Right. And
that's
so
smart.
if I grill all the time, my wife does not cook very often. And by very often, I mean like a couple times a year. I'm the cook in the house. Right. So when I go and I throw some steaks on the grill, I don't throw 2 steaks on the grill. I throw 3, 4, 5 steaks on the grill. Right. And they go in the fridge, and then that's lunch the next couple of days.
That's perfect.
And
that's perfect because you're not
do.
Increasing. That's awesome. You're not increasing your time expense.
Exactly.
But you're providing yourself 2 or 3 extra meals.
Exactly.
That's perfect.
Exactly. And you can take it a step further too when we're talking about like systemizing your life. Like, you can make a habit out of it. I'm a big believer in habits, not necessarily like, here, start these little tiny habits and build up, but just like creating habits, and so I know, okay, I eat dinner every day. That's something I do every day, right? And so if packing your lunch is going to help you be healthier and live a healthier lifestyle, then I make a habit I eat dinner, and the minute I'm done eating dinner, I pack my lunch for the next day. And what that does is a lot of times it's the leftover dinner. Like I don't even give myself a choice. It's just, I'm going to have that again. But I've made a habit of it by taking something I already do, an established old habit, right? That's easy because I always do it. And then that's a trigger for a new habit, packing my lunch.
Like that.
And then that new habit of packing my lunch helps me live a healthier lifestyle. And so not only is it easy, like you said, easy fits into the lifestyle, but it helps me create this new thing, this new healthier habit that helps me lose weight. And so I think it's important to find those ways that you can make this fit easily into your lifestyle. And this goes too for workouts. We talk about, like, you and I are big fans of, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, probably not more than 4 times a week. I'm going to lift heavy. I'm going to have my headphones in, ignore everybody else, and just knock out a workout, 30, 40 minutes in the gym, out of the gym, no wasted time. That's how we roll, right? And I recommend that for a lot of people, especially people that are busy. But at the end of the day, you got to figure out what fits your lifestyle. And if, some people, that's even too much time. Or for other people, maybe they don't like lifting. You and I, like, it's like, all right, deadlift day, hell yeah, let's go do this. But, some people, they don't like lifting the way we do. Just like you and I mean, you've got a program called No Cardio Fat Trading. You don't like cardio. Every time I run, I'm about a minute and a half in, and I'm like, dear Lord, what kind of poor decision did I make to decide to do this? I need to go home, And so by recognizing the things that you enjoy, like, it's not hard to find motivation when you enjoy what you're doing. So if you're a sadist and you enjoy cardio, then go do cardio, right? But if you're not a sadist, I'm totally putting judgment on people, and you enjoy lifting, then go do lifting. Like, and it doesn't have to be like the style lifting we like. Maybe you like a different style of lifting. Maybe you like Olympic lifting. Maybe you like powerlifting. Maybe you like, doing, lifting weights faster, doing like metabolic circuits, or, that kind of thing. Like, do what you enjoy doing, and you're going to stick to it, because if it's easier to do, you're going to do it longer. You're going to get more results. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
there's nothing
cut you off
nothing
there,
wrong with training methodologies at all, and I totally agree with you. And when back in the day when I first started, I was this whole cardio kills your gains, you want to increase your muscle, and I want to see people healthy, I want to see people fit. And if that means, like, my dad, you were talking about your dad, my dad got into cycling, and he's just like, he tried weightlifting. He's like, I've kind of seen the changes that have gone on in you, and I wanted to do some of those changes myself. So he tried the weightlifting thing. I think one of the problems was that he was at Planet Fitness, and like, I mean, come on now, you don't do no lifting at Planet Fitness, shit. But that's what. So, and he didn't like lifting. He didn't enjoy it, and he got into cycling. And he's down a little bit south of where I am. He's down in Cincinnati, and they got warm weather pretty much 9 months out of the year. So he can cycle 9 months out of the year, and
it's funny to me that you think Cincinnati's warm, since I have
yeah,
family in
no, I know
Ohio.
you're from Texas. Today the high temperature was like 45 up here, jerkface.
Yeah.
But so he enjoys doing that, and when he asked me, so what do you think I should do? I said, well, I really think you should strength train. Like, you're 65, you want to strengthen your bones, you want to stave off osteoporosis, because it's going to give you a higher quality of life, to keep your independence longer. And he tried it, and he didn't like it. He's like, I don't like it. It hurts. And I'm like, well, yeah, well, that's when it starts getting fun. And he's like, no, that's not fun. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. So he got into cycling, and he really got into it. And for a couple of years now, he's done that. And I mean, 3 times a week, he'll go 40 plus miles at least. And when he's not doing that, he's going into Planet Fitness, and he's riding on their bike, or he's going on a walk and watching the TVs. And he's lost a boatload of weight, and he's happier. He's healthier. He's getting off. He was pre-diabetic, and he's no longer pre-diabetic.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like you just, it's cliched and it's stupid, but if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So you have to figure out what you are going to do to use it in order to make sure that you don't use it. And you're right. Like, maybe you like Olympic lifting, maybe you like CrossFitting or Zumba or yoga or whatever. We just need to make sure that we don't put the cart in front of the horse. And if part of your fitness regimen is to maintain leanness and to get rid of excess body fat, you need to realize that it's a simplification, but at the fundamental basis of what is happening with your body, it is Newton's law of thermodynamics. It's calories in versus calories out. Whether those calories in, whether those calories out come from diet or they come from exercise, whether the calories in come from diet or the calories out come from your exercise, come from your regular metabolism, come from whatever. You need to make sure that if you're trying to lose fat, that you're burning more than you're taking in. And I think that's the big thing. A lot of people end up training really, really, really hard, but then they undo all that progress at the dinner table, and that's a problem. That's an issue, and that can be frustrating. It's so frustrating. Like, I get these inquiries, and I hear the pain in their voice when they're like, man, I've been training 6 hours a week, an hour a day, 6 days a week for the last 4 months. I've been killing myself, CrossFit workouts and grueling this and circuit training, and twice I threw up, and I lost 2 pounds during all that time. What am I doing wrong? And like, it's so difficult to hear stuff like that, because you want to establish a positive feedback loop. You want to try hard, and as a result of you trying hard, you see results. And because you see the results, that gives you motivation to continue doing that. So then you try harder, and you see more results, and you improve. And the things that you need to improve, though, aren't the grueling workouts. You need to improve your consistency. You need to improve your ability to do whatever your plan is day in and day out. And therein lies the beauty. I was talking about Eric Helms before, and on the training The two biggest, or I'm sorry, first I talk about the diet. And on the diet, the two biggest components to success are calories and macros. And then the training, the two biggest components to training are adherence and intensity.
Okay.
So basically, if you got your calories in order and you're watching your macros and you show up and go hard, that is literally like that's 99% of the entire picture. You can do anything that you want in the game of fitness. You want a six pack, you can have it. You want to be jacked and have huge shoulders, you can have it. You want to be able to get through, I don't know what the CrossFit names are. There's like some names of some people that CrossFit does. But if you want to master those,
and Susie and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, Susie and Wilma. If you want to conquer Susie and Wilma, as long as you get your calories and macros set on the diet side, and then you show up and go hard. That's it. Like, that is the whole game. And
but here's what's crazy about that, right? Like, you talk about that, and I talk all the time about the 80-20 principle and just doing the small percentage of things that gives you 80% of the results. I'm getting feedback again for some reason. Well, if you get the calories right and you get the adherence to the workouts right, that's most of it. Like, you don't even need to go 2 levels deep. Like, it'd be great if you went 2 levels deep. Like, the people that you and I work with that get stellar results, they go 2 levels deep. But honestly, there's people that get great results that just get their calories and show up at the gym every day, or not every day, but every workout day. And,
sure, you could make the argument that as long as you get your calories right and you do something. Like, I mean, you could probably make the argument that if you get your calories right and you go on a walk each day, you'll be fine.
Like, I just put out a blog post called The Netflix Diet, talking about, like, if you just get your diet right and you sit your ass on the couch and watch Netflix all day, like, you're going to get results, because you will. You know, like, because at the end of the day, it's calories in, calories out. And I'm a big believer in eating foods that, come from slaughtered animals and grow from the ground, like, eat good, healthy food. But if you get the calories right, like, you're going to get results. And it's funny, we were talking, we spent a whole bunch of time here talking about, the systems, the workouts, that kind of thing. But nutrition is so, so important. And just tracking nutrition is so important. And I can't tell you how many people, I've got a buddy that's getting married here soon, right? And he's like, hey, Mike, I just want you to help me lose a little bit of weight before the wedding. And him and his wife have done. His wife actually, I actually was only helping him, but his wife kind of just started following what he was doing, and she's had to get her dress refitted 2 times. And the tailor was like, "You need to stop losing weight, or we're not going to be able to fix this dress anymore." So that is
awesome.
Yeah,
so
really cool, really cool. So shout out to my buddies that are getting married here in like a week, and or no, 2 weeks. But yeah, nutrition is just so, so important. And one of the things when they were doing this, they were like, I didn't realize I ate so much of this stuff. Like, I didn't realize when I ate this thing that it cost me this much, that it was this many calories, right? Like, we've got a barbecue joint here called Rudy's, and they make these amazing breakfast tacos, right? Like, I mean, anything in Texas, if you can wrap it in a tortilla and put some cheese on it, like, that's how we roll, And so this is what we do. We take perfectly good brisket barbecue that's fine on its own, and we go, hey, if we put that on a tortilla with some eggs and cheese and wrap it up, it's going to be even better, right?
And you can call it breakfast.
And we call it breakfast, right? So my dad, when I told you about him coming on the diet, so he'd been going for like 30 days straight, and they had built this restaurant like across the street from my house. I'm like, hey, screw your diet today. We're going to go get tacos. So we get him. Well, he's being diligent, right? He'd been tracking it in his phone, right? And on his little MyFitnessPal app. And we had 3 tacos each, right? I'm not worried about it that day. I was like taking the day off. I'm just like, hey, we're just going to have a break, a rest from dieting today. Well, he was being diligent. So he starts putting them into his phone, and his face went white as a sheet because he put them in and went, oh my God, this was like my calorie allotment for the day. Right. Like, and it's that kind of moment when you finally start tracking things and you go, those, when I was in college and when I first started law school, I used to go get 2 pink frosted donuts and a Red Bull every morning before class.
And you didn't realize that was like 800 calories.
No, 2 donuts is like 800 calories. You throw the Red Bull on there, I mean, you're like
1,100.
If you're one of those petite females, that's your deficit for the day.
Yeah, no,
You're not
yep,
eating the rest
yep,
of the day if you want to get results, you know? And
yep.
so when you start to finally like look at, oh my God, this thing costs this many calories, or and you start to look at that, it's really eye-opening, right? And then you
It
start to
is.
make choices like, okay, I've got this many calories for dinner. I can have, maybe you wouldn't have these for dinner, but you're like, I can have chicken breast and vegetables, or I can have a bowl of Frosted Flakes. They're the same number of calories, but one of them is really going to fill you up, and one of them is going to leave you still hungry. Like, what do you choose? Like, I would
Right.
choose the chicken, you know? And so nutrition is so important, making those choices. But this is a long-winded way to say, I really want to talk to you about, recently you put out about your hate for nutrition trackers. And like back in the day, like how I got started getting motivated, I was all about like, how many fitness applications can I put on my phone, right? Let's make it a game,
Yes, I got you.
I've
I
even
got you. I
got,
got you on the dark side. I love it.
yeah, and I pulled this out here, right? Like I got my little Fitbit, like
Let's
back in
see.
the day I had this, I
Let's
tracked
see.
my steps, all these things.
Do you
This
want to
is,
see my MFP? Hold on, where is it? Ah,
yeah, no, I
I just
do. I do.
I pulled it off the fridge. There's my macros right there. It's on
Yeah.
a piece of paper, and let's see. This is a few other everything dietary related. I don't keep in a phone. I put it on my fridge in some sort of a post-it. And no, you're right. And at first, it wasn't necessarily like I didn't want other people to do them. It wasn't like I didn't want clients to do it. It was just my own personal preference. And people would ask about it and say, "Well, what do you think? Should I do my Fitness Pal? Should I do my macros? Should I go on to Calorie King?" And there were lots of different questions that they had about all
Right.
of the websites that were out there. And at first, it was just like, "Well, I mean, you can do it if you want to. Like, whatever." I don't. So I can't really give you guidance on that because that's not me. I've tried it before, and Jack, the very first buddy that I ever had that I helped through this, that I told you, he kind of put the idea of doing this business in my head. He asked me he asked me about it. And he's like, "Have you
Hmm.
ever done MyFitnessPal?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, it's great. You can track your foods and you can da da da." And I'm like, "Well, I don't think I want to do that." And it's a teacher thing. It really is, and it's my time in the classroom. And it's my time closely evaluating and looking at what helps people learn the best. And if you, Mike, you're from Texas, so let's say you decided to jump the Rio Grande and go into Mexico, and you had to learn Spanish. So, yeah, so you decided to go. You had to learn Spanish, and you jumped the Rio. Sorry, I've had a lot of drinks at this point.
Really quickly,
Yes.
guys, I just looked at this. I've got my iPad here because I'm looking for questions and stuff. We've had 160 unique people pop onto this podcast today that have
Awesome.
viewed. 160 people. I'm looking at my computer right now. We've got at least a dozen people that are watching live right now because people keep popping in and out, but 160 unique visitors and at least a dozen of you watching right now. If you've got questions, please write your questions and we'll talk about them here. This is a live fitness happy hour. We can answer your questions live. So please pop them on here. It'll give us something to talk about.
I still got half a bottle of Maker's Mark to drink.
Yeah. Jason gonna get stupid tonight, right? So
I might.
so
Okay, what were we talking about? Oh,
well,
right.
let me
Jumped
get
the Rio Grande and you're going to Mexico.
well, real quick before you get to that, just so I can put people where this is at, right? We're talking about these fitness trackers and why it's important because I used to be a big fitness tracker person. I used to use MyFitnessPal religiously, and I've gotten away from it. And Jason's got a really interesting take about why it's better for you to not use a tracker and to do it old school with paper and pen, and why, like, I don't find this tool to be very useful to me anymore. Whereas it was very useful to me in the beginning, and I'll talk about that too. But Jason, first I want you to talk about like why, go back to talking about the Rio Grande, but why trackers, why you're not a big fan of them, and then what you should do instead.
Sure. It really comes down to like an educational philosophy. And a lot of what a teacher has to do when they're in the classroom is they have to almost get meta, right? You don't just teach. You think about what's the best way to teach. And you don't just think about your students learning, but you think what's going to make my students learn the best. Did my students learn well here? How can I tinker this and how can I change this for the next time? So there are two different methodologies as far as teaching goes. And one of the methodologies is You give them something like you toss them a softball, make a really easy question that you know they can get right. And they do well, so they gain a little confidence, and you do it again. So, and it's almost like this algorithmic way of getting from point A to point B, where you slowly build on the skills and you make them a little more complex, a little more complex, a little more complex, and then boom, when you get to the end, hopefully they get the punchline, so to speak, and they understand the lesson that's at hand. And there's another educational view, and this is you throw that motherfucker in the deep end and see if they drown. And that's that's kind of how I see macro trackers. If you have a macro tracker, you have this, like, from the start, you have this huge crutch. Like, let's say your goal is that you are going to hit your protein and your carbs and your fats. And the only tool that you know is to break out your macro tracker and plug in the food that you are currently eating into your macro tracker. What are you learning? Like, all you're learning is, what numbers do I have left? What can I eat? So it takes away most of the mindfulness of the situation. It takes away you internalizing the numbers yourself. Over time, when you're macro tracking, you should have this massive database and Rolodex going through your head of the various foods that you're eating. We are creatures of habit as human beings. I know that every single week that goes on, I am going to eat beef 2 or 3 times. I'm going to eat ground beef a couple of times. I'll probably eat steak once. I'll probably eat grilled pork chops once. Like, so we're creatures of habit. Like, we eat generally the same things. So after you've been macro tracking for a couple of months, macro counting for a couple of months, you should have an idea of what you're going to make for dinner. You should not have to go consult your MyFitnessPal. But when you're on MyFitnessPal, you're relying on this little piece of this little telephone. And this gets deep into, like, the psychological levels of decision making with humans. It's a lot deeper than you think. It's not just necessarily like what's going to keep me on track for my diet. There are a lot of mental health issues that are going on in college campuses right now, because the students that end up going to college, the 18, 19, 20-year-olds, when it comes time to solve their own problems and think independently, they've only internalized one thing: take out your cell phone and call mom. That's it.
Right.
They haven't met these problems head on. They haven't dealt with them on their own. And when you deal with a problem head on and you solve it on your own without the use of technology, without the use of mom or dad or a friend, that's how you build confidence. And when you build confidence, you don't need the MyFitnessPal anymore. What are you going to do? Are you going to have this little cell phone thing 10 years from now? Like, is this going to be your long-term solution in order to do this? So it creates a dependence on the MyFitnessPal. It also takes the heat off of you when it comes to planning ahead. I see a lot of people that they will start the day, and I'll be like, so hey, what's your plan? What are you going to eat today? Do you have your breakfast? Oh no, I got MyFitnessPal. Don't worry about it. I'm like, what do you mean? Don't worry about it. Oh, well, I'll just eat breakfast. I'll plug it in. I don't know what I'm going to eat, but whatever it is, I'll just plug it in. And I'm like, well, what happens when it's 10 o'clock in the morning and you ate all your carbs? What are you going to do then? And they're like, oh, well, and like they're not thinking as far as like being, as you said, setting things up and intelligently saying, well, I have these choices. What should I make? Okay, for dinner, I know I want to eat this. I have X for dinner, so that means I need to eat Y up until dinner. So what am I going to do? Am I going to eat breakfast? Am I going to eat both breakfast and lunch? Am I going to eat just lunch and skip breakfast? Am I going to fast? What am I going to? So it takes the entire decision-making process. And as I said, like taking your diet and building your diet around your lifestyle instead of building your lifestyle to your diet, that's important. Like, you can't do this thing changing yourself for your fitness or for your diet. That's not going to work. So MyFitnessPal makes that harder to do. It makes it more difficult. And my apologies to MFP, my apologies to My Macros, and my apologies to Under Armour. I mean, I'll wear your shit, like I love your clothes and everything, but I'm not into it. Like, I don't like it. I think it's a crutch. I think it's a hindrance, and it really frustrates me when I work with a client really closely and they get amazing results, freaking awesome results. And then at the end of all of that, I'm like, okay, let's get some reflections. And they don't have many dietary reflections. Right. They don't. And one of the reasons they don't have it is because they haven't gotten to the meta level. They haven't thought about their thinking. That's what separates humans from every other thing on earth is
Yep.
human beings can think about their thinking. And
That's a good point.
if we can't do that, seriously, there's no other animal. Like a dog does not think about their thinking. They just do whatever the hell they want and then shit on your carpet.
Well, this is another good point too. You were going a little woo woo on me there for a second, but I mean, good point. But but humans are different also in the fact that you can change your life at any point in time. You can look at what you're doing and go, I don't like this. I want this. And you can go do it, right?
Mhm.
My dog, I love her to death, right? But she's like almost 5 years old. We've got a baby now, and things have changed for her. But we ingrained these certain habits in her over the last 4 years, and she can't change. And it's hard for her right now.
Mm-hmm.
But a human can go, just like you've done, just like I've done, just like many of our clients have done, go like, I'm a fat ass right now. I'm a garbage disposal that eats anything that's laid out in front of me. I want to be a mean, lean machine that can pick heavy crap off the ground for absolutely no reason and can go, what's up, bro? Check out my six pack, you know? And you can think about that in your head and go, I want to do this, and then just change your behavior and make it happen. And so like, we got to take advantage of that. Like, we're creatures of habit, but we are unique in that we can change our habits. And if you actively think about those things, like, you can make it happen. And so, kind of a sidebar, but you've got this really great point of, you know, we're creatures of habit. And if our habit is just to go to our phone, we're not really learning anything. We got to think about what we're doing and how we're changing and be mindful of it so we can continue to do it for long term. And so, but I don't ever want to give everybody here, hey guys, here's the problem, don't do this. I want to give them a solution too. So what is your recommendation? Like, how do you handle tracking without Siri and MyFitnessPal?
Okay. Whew. That's a heavy-handed question, dude. And the reason it's a heavy-handed question is just because there's so many variables. And maybe in my life there are different variables than in other people's lives.
Well, let's just keep it some basic actionable items, because like you said, your job has a huge impact on what you can do. And I think, and everybody's does, you know, like my situation when I had my transformation, my weight loss transformation, I was in law school, and that had a huge impact on what I did and how I found and the system that I did. And so, I mean, we could have a whole nother conversation about that. So let's just talk about like some general, you've got your meals on a note card that you had hanging on your fridge, you had taped to your fridge. So like, let's talk just a little bit about that system and give some people some ideas of another way to do things.
Okay. I am not gonna lie. The only macro at this point, and it took me a long time to get to this. It really did. As I said, I started with like, I'm not gonna eat any carbs, and then that kind of evolved into I would only track my protein, and then that evolved into, okay, I'll track my protein and my carbs, and then that evolved to I'll track all my macros. And I did that for a substantial amount of time, and over the years, that's actually kind of evolved into an automation system.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean when I say an automation system is I know how much food I need to eat in order to lose fat, and I know how much food I need to eat in order to gain muscle if I'm in like a bulking or a body a massing kind of a protocol. And it takes a long time in order to do that. And so gosh, I don't even know if this is good advice, but my main advice is never stop reflecting. Like, never stop thinking about what you're doing. And I mean that in the biggest sense of the word. I mean, even you want to practice consistency. Consistency is a skill. Saying no at the end of your meal, like saying I just ate my last bite, and even though I could eat more and I'm not stuffed to the gills, I'm going to stop my food intake. Like, that's a skill. Like, that's not easy to learn. And for many years, I didn't do that. I ended my dinner. I went right to the pantry. I grabbed Twizzlers or Doritos or cheddar and sour cream Ruffles, and I went to the couch. It took me a long time to realize, okay, after dinner, like, I'm done eating for the night. Like, that's it. I'm not snacking. I'm not drinking. I'm not anything. So I understand that. So that's like one of the first things that we have to learn is like that we have a shutoff valve, and it's okay if you don't eat. It's okay if you eat lunch at noon and you don't eat dinner until 6. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
You will survive going for those 6 inches, those 6 hours without eating. Yeah, I know, right? White guy problem, 6 inches there. I'm just joking. I'm getting.
This is why we do this happy hour style instead of perfectly sober, because here's the deal, guys. Like, this may not be the most informative, most actionable podcast that you listen to. I hope that it is, that you take something away from it, but it should at least be entertaining, because
Hey,
here
it makes me
he's
human. That's
making
for
penis
sure.
jokes, right? Yeah. Like, what's funny is I was like, hey, I'm texting beforehand. I'm like, hey, bro, I'm pre-gaming. You should pre-game. And he's like, I'm afraid I'm gonna be sloppy. I'm like, we're just gonna have fun. It's no problem. So continue, man. This is all good.
Sure. No problem. What was I even talking about?
6 inches. That's what I remember.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So first, when we get into dieting, we have to realize, like, I think it's a big thing, like, to realize that it's okay to not eat for a certain time period. It's almost like this.
It's okay for your stomach to be empty. There's like a difference between, hey, I'm hungry, and hey, my stomach's empty. Like,
yes, you are right. Those are two distinct feelings, and it takes a lot of reflection and a lot of thinking to realize. Like, I in between my meals, like, I might eat my lunch at noon, and I might eat my next snack. Like, I have a post-workout meal at about 4:30. I'll have, like, some meat and a piece of fruit or something, and, like, so that's 4.5 hours. So about 2 or 3, my stomach is empty. I don't feel hunger pangs though. There's a difference between your stomach is empty and you're hungry. And just because your stomach is empty doesn't mean you need to fill it up. And a lot of hunger pangs can be misplaced hormonal patterns that are occurring in your body.
It could be a hydration thing.
It could be a hydration. Absolutely.
That's such a big thing. Like, if you don't drink enough water, like, the signal for I'm thirsty is the same signal as I'm hungry. And so a lot of time when you go, oh man, I'm hungry right now, well, how much water have you drank today? Because most people I know aren't big water drinkers, Like, I remember my wife, like, for the longest time, like, she works for Coca-Cola and manages a water plant. Like, they produce water, and she didn't drink water. Like, it was the weirdest thing to me. And when she finally started drinking water, she was not eating as much, and the weight just flew off. One simple change.
Right. Oh, absolutely. So like, I think that's a big thing at first, is to realize, if you don't settle that urge, your life will go on. And I find this interesting. Think about the bodily urges that we have as human beings. We have a bodily urge to sleep. If we wake up and we haven't had enough sleep, we're really, really tired. How many people do you know pull a George Costanza and take a nap underneath their desk? I don't know if you watch Seinfeld. I might be dating myself here. But George Costanza used to take naps famously under his desk. No, if we're tired, we suck it up and we wait until the nighttime. And if we decide that there's a beautiful girl or guy, if you are a female, walking down the street,
if you're into that kind of thing,
yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't just, like, pull down your pants and publicly start masturbating, do you? Like, that's a bodily urge. I mean, it's a bodily urge.
Sure.
Right? I mean, we're humans here. We can discuss sexuality. So, like,
no, I wrote an email about a guy sent me a question, and this is just too funny. I'm going to mention it again. Guy messages me, and he's talking about totally normal conversation about building muscle, building his upper body, and then he throws me this question out of left field about whether he needs to do bicep curls to build his arms if he's a frequent masturbator. So this topic has come up today.
Totally. So what did you tell him? Did you tell him yes?
I blocked him, man. Like, this is on Twitter. I just hit block. I hit block. I immediately opened my computer and wrote a really hilarious email to my subscribers.
Trolled the hell out of him. It would have been like, what you need to do is 47 wrist curls, and you sleep with a sock over your forearm, and Okay.
Yeah.
But no,
So
but
back
like my whole point on that whole like a little bit of a tangent on masturbation there is like like as humans, like I mean we're animals, right? I mean we have urges. There's things that we want to do, like we want to sleep, we want to eat, we want to fuck. Like those are the things that we want to do, and all of a sudden, like we want to. I can say that, right? Like,
you're good. This
okay,
isn't
good.
public radio.
And and like, but for some reason, the second we feel hunger, we feel like we need to fulfill it now. Like, think about how messed up that is. Like, do you find people just like sleeping in the middle of the street because like they got tired? I'd be sleeping every single day at my school. I get 8 hours of sleep and I wake up and I yawn all day long. Like we're tired. We have lots of chronic stress that's going on in our lives, right? And like I'm a guy, so like on my head is like sex 24/7. Like,
Well, yeah, you mentioned
you
the
know.
sleep, but I think the sex drive thing is much more like a better visual of this. If every single time you had a thought like that go through your head, you just unzipped your pants and whipped it out, like you would never do that, like, right? But it's the same thing. Like we get hungry.
It's
you
frowned
know?
upon. It's frowned upon as a teacher.
it's dude, yes, definitely frowned upon as a teacher, frowned upon in general. But
last guy got in a lot of trouble.
oh man, gotta breathe. But the same token, like we don't act that way, and maybe it's because it's less. I mean, that's the problem. Is in society, this is not frowned upon. Like
Yeah.
whipping it out is frowned upon. But when you get hungry and you just go, "Ooh, piece of candy," like, and you just stuff it in your mouth, like that's not frowned upon. But we just like act impulsively on that urge, and so think about these other things that you have the urge to do that it's not socially acceptable to do.
Hold on. What got us here? I can't even remember. What got us here? Hold on.
I asked you. Here's what happened. I asked you to explain to people how you track your macros without a tracker, and we got here.
That's classic. That's absolutely awesome. That's fantastic. This is a great podcast. I'm glad you invited me on your internet show. Hold on. I'm trying.
Let's focus. I've got something actionable, but I want you to give us something actionable too. Just tell us at this point. Just tell us how you track your macros.
There is an evolution to this. There is, and when I first started, there were some vague rules, like I said, as far as avoiding carbohydrates, and yeah, I was a big proponent of the insulin hypothesis. It was wrong. It was incorrect. I'm sorry. I will say 10 Alan Aragons in like 12 Lyle McDonald's in order to absolve myself from my sins. And eventually, over time, like everything just evolves. And like it went from like I'm super scared of carbs to like, okay, well maybe carbs aren't the devil, to I'll start tracking my macros. And eventually over time it just became like, and again, I was always thinking about it. I was always like, okay, what am I eating right now? What's my lunch look like as far as the calorie breakdown? What does the macronutrient composition look like? And I was just always questioning it, always thinking about everything. And eventually over time, it just evolved and evolved and evolved. And I stopped having fears. I think that's important, to stop having fears. At first, I feared that carbs were causing me to be fat. So I eliminated carbs. And I was like super obsessive about that. And then I kind of like backed off of that. And then I had a fear that if I went too low in fat, that all of a sudden like I would have no testosterone. And I get my testosterone checked regularly, and that was not an issue either. And over time, I kept eliminating fears. Don't be scared of this. Don't be scared of that. And I got to the point where I just wanted to test things out on my body, and I wanted to see what worked the best. And I realized that the best way to see if things work the best is to pick a plan and stick with it for 12 weeks. And that's it. And I've gone through a bunch of different protocols, a bunch. Obviously, I tried the super low carb stuff. I tried the keto stuff. I tried the lean gains type of a protocol with the calorie cycling and the intermittent fasting with that combined. I've tried bulking on a fasting protocol and a macro cycling protocol. I've actually recently, about a year ago, I stopped fasting. So I started eating breakfast again, and I tried to do all those different protocols while eating breakfast to see what that did to me. And lately, I've actually been doing a very low fat protocol, where I will keep my fat macro, like 30 or 40 grams max per day, and I'll keep my protein and my carbs relatively high. I've tried rapid fat loss protocols. That used to be something that I was like super scared of. Like if you try to lose fat too quickly, all of a sudden your metabolic panel is going to tank, and you're going to end up losing LBM, lean body mass. So I used to be scared of those things. I used to be and I realized a lot. Like, I also used to be scared of overtraining. That was a thing too. You mentioned the minimalist routines, and I love minimalist routines. I do.
Right.
I go back to them. They're like my. You need a building block of fitness and of lifting, and those are my building blocks. Like if I need all right, man, I got 8 weeks. I want to go back to the basics. All right, I'll go to RPT, or I might go to like a strong lifts 5x5 or something like that.
That's
But
like
I've tried.
if you want to go back to the basics, or if you don't have the time. But when I got the time, let's go do some stuff.
Yeah, no, and this fall actually I gained more size as far as actual muscle than I've ever gained in my life, and then there's about a 4-month span where I trained 5 days a week for 90 minutes, and not only that, but I mean I was doing 50 to 60 sets of chest, 50 to 60 rows. I was doing leg days. I was doing biceps, triceps, like all these crazy drop sets and supersets and time sets and pause reps and all this just crazy shit. Just throwing it all at my body. Like, I don't know. I've never done it before. So maybe it'll respond well. And like all of a sudden, like my upper body and like my everything just blew up. And I went, dang, well, that really worked. And it's kind of like the old adage, like, everything works for a little bit, but nothing works forever. And you got to keep throwing curveballs at your body. I don't believe in muscle confusion. We're not P90Xing this shit right now. But throw yourself different stimuli. If you've done minimalist stuff, then go a high rep thing and do high reps for 12 weeks. And if you're still milking gains, well, shit, go for 16 weeks, go for 20 weeks. Who cares? Like if you're milking gains, if you're making progress every time you go into the gym, why are you going to stop? Like that's the biggest rule of fitness. If it's not fixed, or if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Exactly.
Like keep going. So don't be scared of going to different methodologies. And you know when I gained the most size, like to where like now like people are finally going, damn, dude, you lift. Like look at you, like you lift. I stopped doing the big three. I haven't done a deadlift, a barbell squat, or a barbell bench press for almost a year.
Crazy.
Isn't that nuts, man? Like, and I was like, live and die by the big three, like powerlifting, numbers, get them up. And like, I stopped.
Yeah, I'm still obsessed with the big numbers, so I couldn't give that up.
No, and great, like fucking great, man. Like, cause that worked for me. Like, and it still would work for me. But I realized with my frame and like being like I'm a big dude, like I'm 6'8", I'm tall. Maybe the high frequency was what my muscles needed in order to grow better. Or maybe it was just because I've never done that before. And I knew the top 2 rungs of the strength training pyramid are adherence and intensity. So every day I would show up and go hard. And if you show up and go hard, then maybe that's the key. You know, maybe that's the key to success. So to answer your question, and I know I'm just rambling now, and it's the maker's. But the biggest key to success, as far as all of this stuff goes, is never stop thinking about what you're doing and ask yourself, like, what am I eating? Like, what's the composition of the meals I'm eating? Am I eating vegetables at every meal? Am I eating protein at every meal? How many meals out of the day am I eating lean protein? How many meals out of the day am I eating fattier protein? Am I snacking? If I'm snacking, what am I making my snacks out of? When am I snacking? Are there any moments during the day where I'm hungry? Am I hungry when I wake up? If I'm hungry when I wake up, for how long am I hungry? Does that hunger go away if I, drink a liter of water and I break out the coffee? Will my hunger dissipate, or does it continue? Is it something that's manageable, or is it something that I need to look into what I ate the previous night for dinner? Or do I need to start eating a bigger breakfast? Do I need to start eating a breakfast at all if I'm fasting? Does fasting not work for me? So these are just the constant peppering of questions that you just need to ask yourself in order to think about what you're doing. And in this whole thing started from macro trackers, and macro trackers take all of that consciousness out of the equation. And when you take all of that thought and all of that brain power out of the equation, you're not going to get there. And it's weird. Like, I'm at this point where I don't count shit. Like, I'm not going to count anything, and I'm steady losing a pound or two a week, and I'm getting ready for the summertime, and I'm not counting macros. And that's cool. That's awesome, because I do not want to break. I have a scale that's right up there in my kitchen counter, or in my kitchen cabinet, excuse me, and I have not opened up that kitchen cabinet in like 8 months. Like, I've had no need. Like, I know about what I need to eat, so I'll just eat it. And I know it's low enough in fat, and it's low enough in carbs, and it's full of nice veggies and the foods that I should be eating. And it's really weird too, because it's almost like in fitness, you come full circle. And if you really do, I kind of feel like I finally gotten there and come full circle. And when you come full circle, guess what happens? You eat less and move more.
Right, which is difficult. Like, and that's like, it's funny because we talk about how like it's not as simple as that when you're starting. And I think there's this like evolution of fitness in everyone's life, and this evolution of tracking, right? And so you mentioned like you never use trackers, and so I'm gonna go into this. I remember there was a day not too long ago, maybe probably over a year ago. So, but not too long ago in the grand scheme of things, that you and I are having a conversation. You're like, man, I just want to get to the point where I don't have to track my food anymore. I can just eat intuitively and get the results I want. Like, that's the goal, right? And at that time, you would take things like these note cards, for those of you that are watching live, which we've had over 200 viewers now, which is awesome. Yeah, and you would just go, you used to, put them down. You'd write on and actually you still did, because I saw you had it on your refrigerator. You'd write down what you're going to eat, and you would eat whatever was on the card. Like, that was how you planned it, Exactly. And so, but there's this evolution where I'm overweight. Like, I feel fat. I'm not happy with how I am, and I'm just eating whatever I want, right? Or I'm trying to be conscious by not tracking. There's no detail involved. And then you go to this point of hyper detail, where you're trying to be very aware of everything you're doing, right? And this is where you're really tracking. And then you want to get back to where there's no detail. You just do it intuitively. And and there's this way. And so for me, you never went through the tracker, and so I wanted to talk about, like, for me, where I went from having the Fitbit, and tracking everything in my phone, to where I'm like with you, where I don't track anymore. And I've got kind of a simple process. So this is something that you guys can like straight up apply today. Okay. So the first thing, I don't have a problem with the trackers. If you want to use it at the beginning, I just want you to be aware of how much you're eating, and that when you eat certain types of food, you go, holy shit, that's a lot of calories, right? I want you to be mind blown and to just look at that and just be I didn't know this, right? Like, I mentioned the story about my dad, okay, earlier. If you weren't here earlier, go back and listen to that part. So then the next thing is you're tracking. You have a goal. When you have certain calories or macronutrient targets that you're trying to hit, every day that you hit them right, I want you to pull out a note card, and I want you to write down exactly what you ate, okay? I ate this for breakfast, this for lunch, this for dinner. Not the calorie amounts, but like how much you ate of each thing. And I want you to set that aside, right? Like, have a little folder or something with it. And you're just going to build up this Rolodex of meals, okay? And so at first you're tracking. This is how I got off tracking, right? I was tracking everything in my phone on MyFitnessPal. And then when I'd have a good day, a perfect day, I would write it on a note card. Eventually I had like 50 note cards. And what I would start to do, then I was like, I'm not going to track anymore. I'm going to go back to my note cards on Saturday, and I'm going to go, okay, what do I want to eat this week? I want to eat, and I would pick 7 note cards, and I would and then I would write all those down on a list. I would go to the grocery store, and I would buy all the stuff I needed to make those 7 note cards. And then I would pick the days I wanted those note cards. And then each day I would make and eat the things that were on those note cards.
Awesome. That's so
And
awesome.
that's perfect diet for a week. And I
It
would
is.
do it and I would get results. And I did that for a long time. And whether you're tracking on MyFitnessPal or you're like Jason and you're writing on a note card and you're sticking it up on your fridge, or you're like me and you've created these meal plan note cards, I did both. Whether you're doing that, after a period of time, and guess what? You're going to get lean. You're going to hit your goals before you ever hit this, right? This is, you finally reach this like nirvana of dieting where you can intuitively diet after you've hit your goal. And guess what? You might hit your goal and then like undo your progress and then get back to it again. Like I had that happen to me, and then you're finally back at it. But what will end up happening is you'll just know intuitively, like if I'm going to eat pork chops for dinner with a potato on the side and I want to put a little cheese on my potato, then that means that I can have this for breakfast or lunch, right? Like, so you might know that like, okay, I'm going to have this for dinner and we're having a baked potato and I want to add sour cream and cheese. So I know that I can only have 2 eggs at breakfast instead of 3 eggs to balance the calories. And you'll just kind of know, you'll do this food math, right? And Jason, it's so funny because you're like a math teacher. The analogy that I was thinking of when you were talking was like, you can do it with a calculator or you can do long form division, right? Like one way, if you have a paper and pen and you're doing your math like that way, you're going to learn to think it through and do it in your head so that you can just intuitively know it. But if you rely on the calculator, if you're pulling out your graphing calculator or your phone for every single thing in a math problem, you're always going to be relying on that phone, right? And so it's important that you try and understand, even if you're tracking on your phone, think about like Jason said, get meta, be mindful of what you're doing and think about what you're putting in there and how it all fits together. That way one day you can get away from that crutch. And so that's something that I would encourage you guys to do, is do whatever you have to do to get started. I don't care if you need to get this Fitbit and you just need to count your steps and have a step goal every day to get your ass out there and moving and burning some calories and being active. And I don't care if you need to use your phone to track or if you're using a note card like Jason, like do something. But then always try and be thinking about what you're doing and move away from that so that long term, right, when it's 2 or 3 years later and then the rest of your life, you can just know, okay, I can do this, this, and this and get the results I want, or I can deviate here, right? Like I can have, it's my kid's birthday party, I can have a slice of cake without it like destroying my progress, right? Like, and then it just becomes part of your life. So just be, like Jason said, very, very mindful of what you're doing. And at this point, we've been on here. We could probably do a whole nother podcast. Maybe we'll do that. But I think it's kind of time to wrap things up. And for as many people as we had come on here, nobody asked us any questions, which is, hey, whatever. Maybe we were answering all the questions. But I just want to throw it back to you to kind of give some final thoughts and wrap this up. I think this was a fun, entertaining podcast. But like, maybe tell us, like, what's your big takeaway, your big tip for somebody that's trying to just get rolling and get some momentum and get results? Like, what would you tell them right now? Just like, have at it.
When it comes to doing things for you, you really do have to ask yourself your why. And a couple weeks ago, I put out a video on social media, and it's on my YouTube channel. And it was kind of like what my why is. And everybody has their why, and everybody's why is different. And it went past the superficial layers, and we all have got superficial layers in our life that we might say this is why, and those layers could be anything. Those layers could be, I want to be healthy. Okay. I want to look good. All right. Well, I want I want girls or guys. I want members of the opposite sex or the same sex, if that's your thing. I want to be more successful in the romantic field. Okay. But there's always something deeper. And I don't know what that deeper thing is. What is your why? And your why is probably at like the root, like the root of it is that you're not happy with staying the same. You're not happy with regression. You're not happy with your life. You think like you're missing something. And I think that's a very human thing. It goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the lowest rung of the hierarchy of needs is physiological stuff. It's making sure that you're fed, you have clothes on your back, a roof over your head, food in your belly, and that you're alive. And after that, it's making sure that you're safe and that nobody is attacking you. And after that, it's making sure that you have gained acceptance through other people. And those are where our needs come from. And depending on where we are in our life and in our society, that determines what we need. And most of us here in America are incredibly blessed. And we are blessed with the fact that we don't have to worry about where our next meal comes from. And we don't have to worry about if the fact that we are safe for most of us. I mean, some of us live in some rough neighborhoods, but for the most of us, I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably in suburbia somewhere on your smartphone or on your tablet or laptop. So those aren't things that really concern you. You're not worried, like, if I go to bed, is there going to be a drive-by shooting in my neighborhood? It's not in your consciousness. So since all of those needs are met, we go to the next level. That's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You always go to the next level in order to search for your happiness. So when you get to that point, you have to find and figure out like why are you seeking this? Why are you trying to improve yourself? Why are you trying to get better? And the video that I came out with on YouTube was why I am driven and why I try to get better. And it's insecurity, and it is. And you might see this big 6'8" guy who's just like laughing and is the life of the party and has this American flag bandana and Chips kind of glasses and Superman beads. But like, I mean, I have the same worries and anxieties that the rest of us have, and that's real. And that's why I want to improve what I'm doing, is because part of my insecurities is that like I'm consistently feeling like I need to measure up to something, and that drives me. And I use that, like, I am conscious of the fact that I always feel inadequate. And since I always feel inadequate, I've decided to channel that into positivity. And you don't feel like you're good enough, channel it into something positive. Improve your physical body, improve your mental body, improve your spiritual body. Improve. Don't rest. Don't sit back on your laurels. Keep pushing forward and striving forward. And I use that with my work. I use that with my business. I use that with my relationships with my wife and with my kids. That's my why. That's what does it for me, is the fact that I always have these feelings of insecurity and feelings of inadequacy. It took me a long time to understand that I was feeling these things and accept them. And I don't know if those things will ever leave me. I just turned 35, so I like to tell people I'm closer to 70 than I was to being born. And I would hope that when I hit 50 and when I hit 60, these things are still driving me and they're still causing me to do the things that I'm doing, because we need to be driven by something. So figure out your why, figure out why you want to get healthy. And to have a six-pack might not be the best reason, and to get laid might not be the best reason. And like, but there's something deeper. There's a deeper level. There's a level that you haven't reached yet in your consciousness. So find it. And when you find it, sharpen that blade. Just sharpen, and just attack life. Just get after it. Like, we are so used to existing in this world and in this society that we go through the motions, and we go to our jobs and we go home and we lay on the couch and we eat our food, and we have 2 vacationing weeks every year, and we have low testosterone and low energy and low cortisol levels, and it's just a life of complacency. And that's not what you're destined for. You're destined for a life of greatness, and you got to find that greatness inside of you. And I hope that you do. And if you need help, then give me or Mike a call, and we can help you out on that.
Hell yeah. Well, that was good. I don't have much to add to that. I mean, that was good. So I'm not gonna ruin it. But guys, so Jason, thank you so much for joining us. This went a little longer than we normally do, but I wasn't gonna stop you, man. You were just spitting out.
I'm on a roll, baby. I'm on a roll.
So, guys, this was our 3rd episode of the Bourbon and Barbells podcast. Couple of things I've been kind of changing this as we're going. I'm trying to make it a better thing for y'all. We had a lot of viewers today. It was really great. But be sure this is on my YouTube channel. Jason will be putting this out via his social media. I will as well. Be sure, go check out his website, anymanfitness.com. Go follow him on YouTube. Go follow him on Twitter. He's putting out great stuff all the time. Seriously, really good stuff. Go check it out. One of my favorite producers of content, one of my favorite people in this industry. Like, you need to go follow him. And then also, go check out my YouTube channel. Go check out me on Twitter. This will be out there. You're going to be able to get it in podcast form. You can listen to it on your commute. You can go watch the video. And I'm also doing this new thing. It's going to be the too long, didn't listen cheat sheet. It's going to PDF that you can actually download, and it's going to have a summary of the topics that we talked about, some actionable advice if you just aren't a person that wants to listen to this whole thing, which you wouldn't know about because you wouldn't have made it to the end of this podcast. But guys, go follow Jason. Stick around for our next episode. We've got an episode next week, and the week after we've got some great guys. Mitch of Mitch Heaslip Fitness, and then Eric Bach is going to be coming on. Some really great guys. They're going to be great conversations also. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you for coming. That's pretty much it. Let's get out of here for the night. You guys enjoy your Friday.
God bless America.
All right.